Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles now, free agent safety Justin Simmons hints at wanting to play for the Eagles and sign with Philadelphia in free agency. We're going to talk about that. Does it make sense? Does it not? But first, do you want another mock draft from yours truly? If this video gets 500 likes, I will drop a 2025 Eagles mock draft tonight right here on the channel. And look, real quick, this is why you subscribe to the program here. We give you daily and year-round coverage of the Birds. We cover the latest analysis, news, and rumors around the Eagles. We crushed our free agency coverage. We're doing the same with our NFL draft content. We do live shows and watch parties during the season. We have the best audience interaction among all content creators covering the Birds here on YouTube. I do so many YouTube shorts to give you 60-second updates as well. And I have to say thank you to all of the real ones, because yesterday we surpassed 118,000 subs. So lock us in, hit that sub button, and let's start the show. A happy Wednesday to everybody. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. The topic at hand, free agent safety Justin Simmons, basically saying, yeah, I'd love to be a Philadelphia Eagle. He's an unrestricted free agent after signing a one-year deal with the Atlanta Falcons last year. He said with Kay Adams, on top of him wanting to play for the Eagles, Vic Fangio reuniting with Christian Parker as well, that he hopes to sign a deal prior to training camp. He's going to be 32 years old on November 19th, so clearly on the back end of his career. And is Simmons still in his prime when he was a four-time second-team All-Pro? No, but he still is, in my eyes, a very good veteran option at that safety position. And I think this move would make a lot of sense for Philadelphia for the reasons that we're talking about here on today's show. Now, yesterday he went on with Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show, and Kay basically teed him up perfectly in saying, you going to the Philadelphia Eagles? And Simmons had this great answer that we're about to discuss here. And then Kay tweeted out the video clip on X saying, Justin Simmons to Philly? Vic Fangio, let's make it happen. Here's exactly how that conversation went. First, Kay Adams asked him, how much does the connection with Vic Fangio, who was Simmons' head coach with the Denver Broncos, and Christian Parker, who was on that staff under Fangio, tip the scale? Be honest. Simmons said, yeah, it really does. As honest as I can be. Going back to your question about Atlanta, there was a lot of new. There's a new system that I had to understand and comprehend. There's a new way to do it. Going to Philly with Vic Fangio, you know exactly what you're getting out of me, and I know exactly what I'm getting out of them because I've been in the system. I still have a ways to go to mastering it, but there are things and nuances that I know Vic Fangio likes and Christian Parker likes. I think that I can really help in that area. Obviously, with the Eagles moving on from C.J. Gardner-Johnson and what he's poured into that city, those are big shoes to fill. But I love what they have going on with Reed Blankenship and the rest of the supporting cast. It's interesting. I'm excited to see what happens. And you hear Justin Simmons say that, and it just makes too much sense, right? Especially because the Eagles have a need at that safety position after trading away Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And if Philadelphia were to bring him in, we're talking about a player who's a four-time second-team All-Pro. He was a two-time second-team All-Pro while Vic Fangio was the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Simmons has talked openly how he's close with Eagles defensive backs coach Christian Parker, who's looked at as a rising star in the coaching industry. And a lot of people think that he would be a great Vic Fangio replacement if Vic Fangio ever decides to retire in the foreseeable future. Players absolutely love him, and look at what Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean did last year as rookies. Christian Parker played a role in that. And as I noted, Eagles traded away a safety in C.J. Gardner-Johnson because they didn't want to pay him all that money. He probably caused some headaches inside that building because he's a unique cat. The Eagles figure to have Sidney Brown step in for CJGJ, but he's an unproven player. And what Simmons would give the Birds, great depth, great leadership, high football IQ, a ball-hawking safety on that back end. He knows the system, and he'd come to the Philadelphia Eagles at a very cheap and discounted rate. There's also this with what Vic Fangio said last week to John Clark of NBC Sports Philadelphia on the field at Citizens Bank Park. John Clark asked him, "You've lost so many players." And Fangio said, "It's tough, but it's part of it. It gives me an opportunity and a reason to wear out Howie. He's got to find replacements for these guys now. We lost 5 starters, and 2 of those guys, they're backups. We lost 2. So we've lost a lot of players, but we'll find a way. We have the draft coming up. Hopefully we'll get some guys there, and we've got some young players that need the opportunities. We'll find a way to get it done." And if you sign Justin Simmons, that is an easy and logical way to get it done. Howie Roseman, also at the NFL owners meetings last week in Palm Beach, Florida, said talent acquisition season just started, and we have holes. And he hinted that we are going to fill those holes. And so you think about Simmons as the player right now, right? He can be a starter alongside Blankenship if Sidney Brown is not worthy of that role, or if Sidney Brown plays well, that's a young player who the Eagles are high on, who they want to develop, and that would just mean that Simmons can be a veteran depth piece and a leader on this team, and you can find ways to get him on the field so that he plays to make him happy. And so it would be a good situation for both parties here. And when the Eagles have had high-level success in recent memory, there have been a lot of affordable vets playing key roles who Howie Roseman signs to short-term contracts. And Justin Simmons would fit that billing as well. And going back to Sidney Brown, Eagles like him. That's why they drafted him in the 3rd round out of Illinois 2 drafts ago. In the pre-draft process, ran a 4.4. He's a physical hitter. We've seen that. As a rookie, we saw it mostly on special teams last year. That's part of the reason why C.J. Gardner-Johnson was traded away. But the depth at that safety position, in my eyes right now, is a little bit of a concern. Blankenship's a stud. He's going to man that free safety spot. He's been one of the best playmaking safeties in the NFL the last couple of years, especially making big-time plays. But flanking him is Sidney Brown. But then you think about the backups. Tristan McCullum, Lewis Cine, Andre Sam, they are unknown commodities as well. Now, if the Eagles don't sign Justin Simmons, that tells me they're pretty high on McCullum, on Lewis Cine, another Georgia player, as well as Andre Sam. What the Eagles could also do, and what I think what might happen here, wait to see what happens in the upcoming 2025 NFL draft at the end of this month. Simmons basically said, "I'm not in a rush to sign a deal. I just want to sign before training camp." And so Howie and the Eagles could see how the board falls, and if there's a safety they love, draft him. If the board doesn't fall their way, if they don't like the value of taking a safety at some point in the draft, then you could go out there and you could sign Simmons to a contract. So today's poll question is this. It'll also be the pinned comment. Very easy to find that. Just scroll on down and let your voices be heard. Should the Eagles sign Simmons? S for sign, P for pass. Comment down below right now. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time, the best app in the ticketing marketplace and the only app that I use when it comes to buying tickets. You get the last-minute tickets and flash deals at the lowest price guaranteed, views from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And Game Time gives you the lowest price guaranteed, or they will credit you up to 110% of the difference. There are a couple of great features, too. You can save up to 60% off on your tickets when you explore some of the functions within the app, like flash deals. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. What's also neat, it's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. The Philadelphia Phillies off to a really good start. They're on a little bit of a road trip right now, playing the Braves and the Cardinals, but then they return home to take on the San Francisco Giants, one of the surprise teams in Major League Baseball. So if you want to catch a game at Citizens Bank Park, you can do that as well. Here's the deal. We have a great deal for all of you. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code CHATSPORTS. CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. As for Simmons' resume, why would you not want to bring in a player like this if it's on an affordable contract? The pedigree is certainly there. 2016 third-round pick, four-time second-team All-Pro, as I mentioned, in 2019, then 2021 through 2023. We're not far removed from Simmons being an All-Pro in this league before he went to Atlanta last year. He was the NFL interception co-leader in 2022. He's always been a big producer as far as generating turnovers and picking passes off on that back end, more of that ball-hawking center field type of safety. He's also been extremely durable. 13-plus games played in 8 of 9 years, and that year that he was the interception co-leader, fittingly, it was alongside C.J. Gardner-Johnson during his first stint with the Eagles. Of course, you do have to talk about what Simmons did this past year with Atlanta, but context is important, as we're about to discuss as well. He had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 59.9. That was 113th among 171 safeties. Run defense grade, 53.8, 149th. Not much of his strength. He is a coverage safety. His coverage numbers, not awful. 60.8 grade there. That was 86th, which is just under being in the green per PFF. He had 2 interceptions, though. That was 23rd. Passer rating allowed of 105.1. That was 64th. He did, though, have 4 pass breakups. That was 19th. He always makes plays on the ball. Smart, heady, cerebral, high football IQ player who can read and diagnose plays. Is Simmons washed? I don't think so. But, again, you would not be asking him to play every down, most likely, at least ideally for the Eagles' sake, because they want to get Sidney Brown on the field, and he's an intriguing player with the type of physicality, confidence, swagger, and athleticism that he brings to the table. It's also notable what Simmons said to Kay Adams, right? Everything was new in Atlanta after he had been with the Broncos since he was drafted at a Boston college. He has scheme familiarity, and I think that that can naturally lead to him playing better and improving. And going back to the context point, the Falcons' defense last year was a mess. Raheem Morris fired first-year defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake late in the year. The defense was so bad that Morris had to have his fingerprints and more say with that unit. And by the numbers, the Falcons allowed the highest completion percentage in the NFL. Dead last, 32 of 32 teams at 69.9%. They gave up the second most touchdowns with 34. They were last in the NFL in sacks with 31. That doesn't help out the back end when you can't generate pressure. And Atlanta was also last in pressure percentage at 28.1%. We found out last year that Reed Blankenship is a freaking player. And I know what Darius Slay said was controversial, but he said Reed Blankenship is next up as far as being a leader. He's part of the Eagles Leadership Council. At least he was last year. And Blankenship is going to have to take on a bigger role on the field within that Eagles defense, but also off the field and in the locker room. And I think the Eagles partially traded Gardner-Johnson away because they know that they want to keep the 26-year-old Blankenship around for a long time and lock him up to a contract extension. Not going to be easy because if he continues to play well, that safety market is exploding. Players at that position who are elite are making $15 to $20 million per year. But you bring in Justin Simmons, that's yet another role model. It's another leader. It's another positive influence who can help Reed Blankenship continue to get better. And we think about Blankenship, right? How often in his Eagles career, since being a UDFA, has he had game-sealing, game-altering interceptions? He's a ball-hawking safety who helps generate turnovers, and so too is Justin Simmons. Blankenship in 2024, how about it? Overall PFF grade is 74.4, 25th at the position among 71 safeties. Run defense grade of 72.3, 46th. Not afraid to put his hat on a ball carrier. A coverage grade of 73.6, 22nd. He had 4 picks, that was 6th. And that came on 524 coverage snaps. So one of the top safeties in the NFL. I don't think he's going to break the bank on that looming contract extension like a Javon Holland, who I think got $18, $19 million per year. But shoot, if Blankenship, who hasn't made a lot of money up to this point, really excels and plays well in 2025, he could reset the market, or at least alter and shift the market a little bit. Going back to the NFL draft, if the Eagles do want to bring in more youth and draft the safety at some point, this is a pretty solid safety class that I like. My favorite safety on my big board is Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Could be available for the Eagles at number 32. Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina is a straight-up athletic freak. I think both of those players could be first-round picks. Xavier Watts, maybe a first-round guy, probably a second-round guy in my estimation. Really good safety out of Notre Dame. And then you start to look at day 2, day 3 players. Kevin Winston out of Penn State, NFL frame. People love his character. Doesn't have the best instincts, but he's a really good athlete. Partially torn ACL last year, but he has some potential. Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. Jonah Sanker out of Virginia. Andrew McCuba was asked to do a lot on that back end for Texas. He fared well. Lathan Ransom out of the defending champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Malachi Moore, you could get him mid to late rounds. The Eagles had a formal meeting with him in the pre-draft process. And then there is the other Penn State safety in Jalen Reed, who's probably a day 3, maybe a day 2 type of player. So your plan at safety is what? Should the Eagles draft one? Type D. Should they sign Justin Simmons? Type JS.